week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this week is George Moore from the Lyme Land Trust and the Tour de Lyme cycling event. George, welcome. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Well, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Thanks for coming down.
Pleasure.
So who exactly is George Moore, and tell us a little about the Lyme Land Trust and exactly what you guys do.
Be happy to.
All right.
I've been associated with the Land Trust for probably about 14 years. I started as a volunteer director on the board of directors, and then I became president for a number of years. These are volunteer positions.
Sure.
We had term limits, so as I was coming to the end of my term limit, I began to be concerned about who would take over after me. My feeling was, could we find somebody silly enough to do it as opposed to smart enough to do it?
Exactly.
Because it was very time consuming. So we created the position of executive director, which I currently hold.
All right.
And so I manage the day-to-day affairs of the Land Trust and then report to the board of directors.
Very nice. And how many board of director members do you have?
Right now we're at 14, but we're authorized to have 15.
Okay.
So it's a good-sized board.
It does. It seems like it's a great-sized board. So tell us a little bit about the Land Trust and exactly what you guys do.
Well, interestingly, we're coming up on our 50th anniversary. It was founded back in 1966, and it was a group of people who came up from Fairfield County. I wouldn't say a group, a small number, a couple of families, and they bought property in Lyme, and they wanted to try and prevent the type of urbanization that was taking place in Fairfield County. And so they had to win the trust of the local landowners and start to set land aside into conservation.
Okay.
It's been 50 years of success because at this point, working with our conservation partners, the Nature Conservancy, the state of Connecticut, the Fish and Wildlife, almost, well, not almost, we just passed it. 50% of the land in Lyme is permanently protected, will never be built on.
Very nice.
So there's many preserves with trails for hiking, birding. Painters love to go out onto these sites and paint beautiful pictures, photography, you name it.
Very nice. And obviously, there's trails for walking if people want to go.
Very much so.
Go for a walk, go for a hike, go get lost.
We have trail, well, it's well marked.
Okay, all right. So you're not going to get lost.
No, we have trail maps up on our website, which is not the Tour de Lyme website, but rather it's the lymelandtrust.org, and you can download trail maps.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think, there's maybe 10 or 12 preserves that have trails for hiking.
Very nice. Now, good segue, by the way. Speaking of the Lyme Land Trust, you guys do a major fundraiser every year.
Right.
And you just said it. So tell us about
Tour de Lyme.
Yes.
Right. Well, I have to give credit to the Land Trust president, John Pritchard, who, when he came on board, he said, we have to come up with a way of raising more money for the Land Trust because the cost of managing all this property going up all the time, and our membership dues just aren't raising enough.
Right.
And a land trust isn't really something you'd have a black tie party or a silent auction. So he decided we would have a cycling event since he was a cyclist. So we created the Tour de Lyme because of the beautiful roads, lightly traveled, that are in Lyme and the surrounding towns.
Yeah.
And we had the first one 4 years ago, well, it'll be almost 4 years ago, it'll be 4 years ago this May.
All right.
And it's grown ever since. So it contributes hugely to the operating costs of the Land Trust.
Very nice. Now, where does I guess tell us a little bit about the Tour de Lyme cycling event. Where does it start? Maybe some of the routes in the past. Maybe, I don't know if we can talk about the route this year. I don't know if it's been finalized yet, but let's start with the Tour de Lyme cycling event, how it got started, and some of the cycling routes that you've gone through in the past.
Right. The first year we thought, so we'll have 75, 80 riders, I guess. So we picked as a venue the site of the Lyme Consolidated School and the Lyme Town Hall. Okay. And we had 300 odd riders, so the parking was, so we had to make arrangements with a farm up the way to have the overflow parking.
Yes.
So following that, we were fortunate to have come to an agreement with Ashlon Farm on Bill Hill Road, and they have plenty of space for parking and for us to set up the tent for the picnic and everything. Basically what we do is we offer 4 road ride. It's not a race.
Nope.
It's a road event.
Right.
So we offer 4 choices, and they go off at different times. The longest goes first, obviously.
Right.
So people tend to arrive back about the same time for the picnic. So the challenge, which is for the heavy hitters, so to speak,
Okay.
is it's changed slightly this year. It's gone from 57 to 60 miles in length. So it's really for serious cyclists.
Right.
And then we have a shorter version of that called the Classic, which is 26 miles, and it's the same kind of rigor, but it's just not as long.
Okay.
And then we have a couple of rides we call the Valley rides. These are gentler rides, fewer hills, but still very pleasing, and they're very, very popular.
Okay.
And then we have the Family ride, which is an 8-mile ride favored by people with their children or
Right,
older
sure.
folks like me who want to
wanna do it, but-
want to make it back for the picnic.
Exactly.
And so that's pretty well similar routes to last year. They're all well marked, and we put biodegradable arrows down on the road, which in a few days kind of wear away and disappear. And then we have a separate chapter, which is the mountain biking, and there's 2 of them, 3 of them actually, and the one is probably a 4.5-hour ordeal, I would call it.
Okay.
You got to be fit to do this.
All right.
And then there's a shorter version with about 2.5 hours, and then we have one that's probably about an hour and a half. And some of that goes through private property, so we don't publish it just yet.
Okay. Now, what are some of we talked about the cycling event. What are some of the areas that people will go through during the different stages of the event?
Right. Well, if we talked about the Family ride stays totally in Lyme. It goes around Sterling City Road, and then it goes down out along Ely's Ferry Road out to the Connecticut River, and then turns around and comes back again. The challenge ride, the 60-mile one, for example, gets as far north as Colchester, basically. It goes way up through Lyme, through East Haddam, up into part of East Lyme, and then up into Colchester, back down. And it's a long, long route. But it's all very pleasant, very pretty, lightly. We go out of our way to pick roads that are lightly traveled.
Right.
So,
I was going to say, because you probably have cyclists
Right,
who are
yeah,
traveling
right.
with your motorist, and you
Right.
don't want...
Exactly. There's one other we have, which is interesting. We received a call about, I guess it was 2 years ago, from the minister of St. Anne's Parish down in Old Lyme, who's an avid cyclist, and he was complaining, Sunday morning cycling, this is not good for me. I have sermons to preach.
I was going to say, you have a sermon you have to go through.
He got together with I'm trying to think the names of them. That's the Episcopal Church, and then he got together with the Catholic Church and the Congregational Church, and so they all get together as a group, and they have an after-services ride. So they ride from St. Anne's Parish up to the Ashlawn Farm. So that's for the churchgoers, so they can join the festivities.
I was going to say, how long do you think that ride is? Couple.
It's probably about 7 or 8 miles.
All right, so it's not that
No,
bad.
they can continue on and do more if they wish. But there may not be any food when they get back.
Exactly. So, when is the Tour de Lyme cycling event this year for 2016?
On Sunday, May the 15th.
Okay, and I believe we have some information on screen right now about the event, where it begins and
Right.
I believe it also begins and ends at Ashlawn Farm.
That's correct. Right. That's where riders pre-register online through our website, and then they show up depending on which ride they're taking and check in, and then they come back and enjoy the picnic.
There you go. And as far as the land trust goes, obviously you're still looking for volunteers and people to help and get involved with the Lyme Land Trust. What type of volunteer for the Land Trust are you looking at?
There's two separate things. For the Land Trust and for the Tour de Lyme. For the Land Trust, we look for volunteers to help us with stewardship. We have to go out and steward the properties that we either own or have conservation easements on. That means walking the perimeter of the property, making sure that people aren't doing things they shouldn't do,
Right.
reporting any infractions, and also areas that need attention, maybe fallen trees. This is done once a year. They take photographs more often if it requires it, and then write up a report. So that's something that we need volunteers for. The other thing is we can always use people who are skilled in communications, in writing articles for our newsletter, social media, that type of thing. The Tour de Lyme, on the other hand, is a one-day event, so we need people in the days leading up to it to help us put the road markers and signs out. And on the day of the event, we need people at different points along the routes to make sure the riders, if they get lost, you can give them directions how to get to the next waypoint.
Exactly. I was going to say, just in case people get lost or
Which is more of a problem in the mountain biking than it is out in the road.
just if something happens.
right.
And people get lost in mountain biking?
Oh, yes.
Really?
We find them eventually.
I was going to say you find them a couple hours later, but
Well, if you think of it, if you're riding along and it's all flag, but if you miss a flag
You're like,
and get off on another trail, and then all of a sudden there's no more flags, and
you're like, where am I? And you end up in Colchester,
Well,
which
yeah.
you could, but I don't know. But
Yeah. But it's getting better. We have really a tremendous number of little flags that get stuck in the ground, and many of the riders have GPS units, so they can download the route.
I was actually gonna ask are you looking for volunteers to come help for the day of the event, or are you
Yes.
pretty much?
No. We can especially use people for the mountain biking, because what we're trying to do is at different waypoints along the course, the riders wear a number, and what we want to do is record that number so that we know the last time we saw rider 57 was at checkpoint 4 type of thing. I don't mean to suggest this is kind of a hazardous activity, but we want to keep our eye on everybody.
Oh, totally. Well, George, we're about to go into a break. Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Be my pleasure.
We'll be right back.
Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, he tries to say. My guest this week is George Moore from the Tour de Lyme. George, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we were talking before the break about the Tour de Lyme cycling event. I was wondering if maybe we can pick up our conversation from there a little bit and get a little bit more in detail about the cycling event and all of the different routes that you guys take.
Okay, right. Well, we had mentioned earlier that we have the longest one and the most challenging one is called the Challenge, which is a 60-mile ride. Lots of hills, lots of inclines that take you long distances, and then you can coast downhill. A shorter version called the Classic, and then some easier rides too. So there's something for everybody. What we have to bear in mind is it's the start of the season for a lot of people.
Right, yeah.
So somebody who could do a 60-mile ride in August may not be up to it just yet. So we have some shorter ones.
I was going to say once the weather, because in the spring the weather's going to start to get warm, and you don't want to hop on the bike for the first time.
Exactly. So, but we take
60 miles and decide in the middle of the cycling event, I'm going to do 60 miles, and then just get tired. It's like, okay,
I get tired quickly.
Exactly.
Right. What we have to facilitate things and help people is, for example, on a 60-mile ride, there are 3 different rest stops.
Okay.
And these have not only emergency repair services from some cycle shops who participate. But we also have things like fruit and fig Newtons and water and juice and things to kind of revitalize the folks' maps so they can see where they're at, and facilities for those that need it. And so those sites help a lot. They give them encouragement, and if somebody says, I've had too much, I've got to head back, we can give them a route back so they don't have to retrace their steps.
Exactly.
But these we get a lot of rave reviews about the rest stops.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, they're really well looked after.
I was going to say they're probably well marked, and people
Yes, oh yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh gee, where am I? I guess last year, let's talk about the special on PBS.
Right. Oh yes.
I was going to say all the things we've talked about so far. We didn't talk about that.
Right.
Well,
partly as a result of our 50th anniversary, we were the subject of a PBS video by a group, a nonprofit organization called Visionaries.
Okay.
It's a series hosted by the actor Sam Watterson.
Okay.
And for 20 years, they've been doing videos or programming on nonprofits, smaller nonprofits who have a story to tell. So they wanted to do a story on land conservation and decided that they'd do a story on the Lyme Land Trust. They came down on 3 occasions, once during February in the winter and snow and ice, and then they came back on Earth Day, and we had the Lyme Consolidated School kids, the 5th and 6th grade, I think it was. They participated, and we had a representative the state of Connecticut Fisheries who came up with a truck with brown trout, and the kids were releasing trout into the river, 8 Mile River, and all being captured in video, which was all terrific. And then they came back again for the Tour de Lyme and got some great pictures of the riders, the mountain bikers, the regular riders out on the roads, and really quite an exciting thing. So it should be broadcast by PBS stations in probably about 2 or 3 months.
that was actually going to be the follow-up question.
Right.
Has it aired yet? No?
No, we have access to the director's copy, which we've been working with and looking at. So.
All right. So obviously, when that comes through, obviously check your local PBS stations and make sure to give it a watch, and then let George know what you think about it, because it should be.
We're pretty excited.
It should be a very exciting event. Very exciting. Now, watching I guess you've looked through many pictures that you have photographs taken of people smiling. Are they really having fun?
They are. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
You think you'd see pictures of pain, but
right.
No, it's become a happening almost, and whether it's at the rest stops or whether it's at the picnic, you just see people who are somewhat relieved it's over, but their smiles are chatting with their acquaintances and friends, and it's great to see the little kids who just like the idea of participating in an event and being part of something big. And then when they get back to the picnic, we have 4 different food choices, food trucks, and a barbecue, and we have a live entertainment, a band. And one interesting little note is the last 2 years we had a young fellow sit on a stool and strum his guitar and sing songs while people checked in, and his name is Braden Sunshine, and some of your viewers may recall he reached quite a position on that program, The Voice. Yeah. And whether or not we'll be able to get him back again this year, I don't know. He's probably on to bigger and better things, but just little interesting things that happen.
Very nice. Now, tell me a little bit about the distinguished visitors you've had stop by over the years.
Well, the most distinguished, I would think, would be last year we had a visit from the Attorney General for the state of Connecticut, and it was a real pleasure to have him show up. He's a great kind of friend of conservation, and it was really nice to have him there.
Now, what are if I didn't know who George Moore was, and I said to you, George, I want to get involved with the Tour de Lyme cycling event, but I'm not really sure if I have the time, or I'm not sure if I want to, but I think I do. I'm on the fence. What would you tell me as far as why I should get involved with the Tour de Lyme cycling event?
Okay. Well, for to benefit the land trust, this money helps us not only acquire more land as the years go by, but to look after what we already have. And Lyme is really a recreational gem in the middle of this huge area in the lower Connecticut River Valley. So, you know, some of the towns around here have built up shopping centers and so forth. Lyme doesn't, so we come to your town to shop. You can come on up and use our trails and our facilities. So you are benefiting the Lyme Land Trust. Plus, it is I think a good thing for people, and especially young people, to get outside, enjoy nature. It's healthy. It's just a darn good thing for people to do.
Now, I guess you're indebted to the motorists along the route who, I guess there's a slight delay they incur.
Well, when you got 300 riders.
So let's talk about that too.
Yeah, the biggest group are about 300 riders on the challenge ride, and they all take off at the same time, and they thin out as the ride progresses.
Right.
But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, if you're on your way to church and you've got all these cyclists coming at you, but the cyclists stay to one side. The motorists are very patient because we've seen it on the photographs. And we haven't had any complaints. And I think the people of Lyme really enjoy this event and kind of celebrate it. And we're just so grateful that you know, that they're courteous and careful. We haven't had any accidents involving, you know, the cyclists and the cars. And I think a lot of that's due to the cautious nature of the motorists. And so they're very patient.
Very nice. Now, I was wondering, when you guys sit down and pick the date for the event, is it always the same time every year, or does the date, is it always like the third,
close to
whatever
it?
is of the month?
I think this is an unusual year in that
Year.
I think there are 5 Sundays,
right.
and so normally there's 4.
Right.
We avoid Mother's Day for obvious reasons.
Thank you.
We avoid Memorial Day because
obvious reasons.
there's also an excellent Connecticut ride from one side of Connecticut to the other called the Angel Ride. And it's a big event. It would be foolish of us to try and compete with that. So we kind of wedge in between Mother's Day and the Memorial Day.
All right.
And that works perfectly for us.
Very
So
nice,
it's the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, depending on the year.
It depends.
But it's beautiful because the trees are all
is.
starting to leaf out and the
Exactly.
blossoming, the flower trees. And it's very,
Exactly.
very pretty.
Now, how, I guess the other thing we didn't talk about yet is, how did you do last year? Did you guys
Extremely
do okay?
successful. Yes,
Good.
we had, year 1 was about 300 odd riders, year 2 was about 600 odd, last year was probably 750 approximately.
All right. Excellent.
And so from that standpoint, we had real growth. We had spectacular weather. Financially, we did very well. And it was just a great event.
Excellent. Now, for the day, if people show up the day of the event at Ashlawn Farms, can they still register?
They can. There's a
to-
$10 extra fee involved because of the extra
Right.
work, and also it puts us at somewhat of a disadvantage because by registering in advance, we know really how much food we have to order.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
a lot of people show up day of.
Exactly.
But it's
Now-
interesting, and I
Go
don't
for
mean to
it.
interrupt
Yeah,
you,
no,
but
go for it.
we had riders from, I think, close to 70 different Connecticut towns,
Wow.
although most were from the lower Connecticut River Valley.
Very nice.
I believe it was 7 different states, and so it's really becoming quite an East Coast event.
There you go. Now, as far as the event goes, and I realize we're in the early spring.
Right.
Has registration opened yet? Can you
Yes.
go and register now or
Yep.
register?
We opened for early part of February.
Okay.
Registration is open.
Excellent.
And we are getting a steady stream of people registering for the event. We have a lot of
Very
people
nice.
return from the road in the past.
Obviously. So obviously registration is opened.
Yes.
When is registration for online going to close?
It'll close on the midnight on the Friday before. So
Okay. All right, so you
Right.
have
plenty of time, right.
You have time. I mean,
Right.
Obviously, if you register early, that's a great thing.
Right.
But if you'll register the day of the event, that's okay too. But obviously,
Right.
like you said, when you register early, it sort of gives you the advantage because you got to
Exactly.
pre-order your food, you got to
Right.
pre-order everything,
Absolutely.
and get your orders in, and you don't want to order for
Too many or too few?
exactly. You don't want to order for too many and then too few show up, or you don't want to order for too few and too many show up, and then you take the graces of, oh no, we're out of food. Now what?
Hey,
It's
small riot.
Exactly.
Actually, there's a couple of new
Exactly.
things.
What do we got? Go. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's a commercial grower in Old Lyme who's donating herbs for us to sale. So we're going to have for sale. So we're going to have a plant sale.
Ooh, all right, excellent.
So that'll be for people to take advantage of. They're really things like basil and
All right.
spearmint and sage.
Excellent.
And then a company is going to provide massage services so that
After
people who
you're
come
done.
with a sore back, they can get a massage.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have a physical therapy company who are going to give advice on therapy and things that might be a good cure for what ails you, from your stresses and strains.
Excellent.
So
George,
these are some of the new things.
I was going to say, we're about to say goodnight, but before we do, one more time, when is the event?
May 15th,
Okay.
Sunday, May 15th.
All right. Starting at Ashlawn Farms and
Correct, yeah.
all right. And if people want more information, they can go to the website.
Right, exactly.
All right.
TrueToLyme.org.
All right. And George, I just wanted to thank you again for coming down with me.
always a
Hopefully,
pleasure.
we'll see you again soon.
I hope so.
All
Thanks,
right.
Pete.
No problem.
Great.
Thanks, George. On behalf of George Moore, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night, and we'll see you next week.